John Smoltz joins us. He'll be on the call. John, thanks for joining us. I'm going to jump right in and start talking about Bryce Harper. The guy's been on fire, and all of a sudden, bro, I'm a big Bryce Harper guy. I didn't know I was. He's been in our lives since he was 16 years old, on the Sports Illustrated cover. All of a sudden, NLCS MVP. Feels like it's all sort of happening and his destiny is being fulfilled. I don't mean to be too over the top, but that's what it feels like.
That's fair.
John, what are you expecting from Bryce in the World Series?
Well, if the formula of what I think the Houston Astros are going to do, I would expect Bryce Harper to be super patient, because until the guys behind Bryce hit more than they have, I wouldn't pitch to him at all. And You're right on with the way that he's been. He came into the postseason struggling, recovering from the injury, wasn't connected mechanically, wasn't hitting well. Well, he's fixed all that. And yes, this is a high mark that we expected Bryce Harper in the beginning of his career. It was impossible to match, impossible to reach. And now, as a veteran, he's kind of come full circle in every aspect of his game, from leadership, clubhouse, off the field, on the field, and that moment, that swing is probably something he'd been thinking about when he was 8. And sending Philly to the World Series, certainly a mark that Bryce Harper will put in his hat for this point in his career.
And on that swing, an unbelievable call by your partner and our colleague Joe Davis. It was just fantastic, met the moment entirely. I want to talk about the guy pitching for the Astros tonight, John. So Justin Verlander is a no-doubt Hall of Famer. He's one of the best pitchers of his era. You were the exact same, a no-doubt Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers of your era. Where it diverges is you were amazingly consistent in the regular season, first round of the playoffs, second round of the playoffs, and then got a touch better across the board numbers-wise in the World Series. I think he had 2.4-something career World Series ERA. Verlander, it's not only the opposite, it's drastically the opposite. He's around a 3 or a sub-3 ERA in every scenario of his career. And in the World Series, it's up above 5.5, and he's 0-6, the win-loss record. Is it a large enough sample, in your opinion, to say there is something to that? Is it bad luck? Can you take your experience, compare it to his? Can you tell us what you think's happening there?
Well, this might be a little far-reaching, but there's so much expected out of Justin Verlander the regular season. I wasn't in that era. Like, I pitched okay. I was consistent, but it wasn't the Glavine and Maddox type numbers in the regular season. Postseason, I had the ability to mix and match and kind of, really pitch to my strengths. For Justin Verlander, it might be just as simple as he wants it so bad. He's an elite pitcher, and there really is no reason to be any better than he has. And I think it's a little flukish. But it is 0-6, and he has to deal with that. And there's no different. You want it to be different. You're answering those questions if it doesn't go right. But he is pitched in his third 10-year. This is 3 time zones, really. When you think how long he's pitched,
3 decades.
It's 3 decades. And that's the one thing that I can say about Justin Verlander. As he's matured and gotten older, he has even gotten better. And he hasn't been there in a while now, because last year, of course, missed with Tommy John. So I would consider this to be a different and separate scenario than the past 0-6, however that led up to it.
John, let's talk about the Astros. Look, I was, like many people, really down on them about 2017. I actually thought that World Series title should have been vacant. But they've gained my respect over the years after that. Getting the 3 World Series in the last 5 years. And so, but I still feel like if they win this series, it will kind of remove that sour taste from my mouth. And I think many people may feel that way about 2017. Do you look at this as this would be kind of the ultimate redemption for them, and people wouldn't feel as bad anymore about 2017 and just look at them as, you know what, this really was maybe a historically great team?
I agree. I think anytime there's something that hangs over your head, whether it's an individual player or it's a team, the best way to silence the critics is to go and prove it in the right way, and they've done that. It's a different roster. I think only 5 guys were on this roster last time they were, when you think about what they've lost and what they've done. This is an organization that has a blueprint for success. It's a blip in the radar screen now long enough ago to where they have kind of righted the ship. Dusty Baker has done a great job. He's going to the Hall of Fame now as a manager. And the Houston Astros no longer, I don't think you can look at it anymore. They've proven it. They've kind of answered that critic. And, yeah, they got a break in the kind of COVID scenario when the fans weren't going to be as harsh. But I don't think you can say anymore that this was a one-off or that it is a one-off, that they have definitely proven themselves. To get here for the next 6 years has been incredible. And I think that narrative, it gets put to rest, especially if they win a World Series. Let's face it, the team that has been the most dominant, the Los Angeles Dodgers, only have one World Series, and that was during COVID. So it speaks to how hard it is, and it speaks to the fact that they've been here now for the last 6 years. That's legit.
I want to ask a question about the Phillies, but quickly, Wild, you're a Pats fan. Did you feel vindicated when you guys won your Super Bowl after your multiple cheating scandals? Like you, I don't know. There's so many of them with that team. I'm not sure, but I know they won a Super Bowl after. All right, John, quickly here, the Phillies. Listen, I am not what would be called a baseball purist, okay? So I love that a team that had the 10th most wins, scratched its way into the playoffs on the last week of the season, might win the whole thing. A lot of people hate it. I think it's a feature. Some people think it's a bug. For you, someone that can appreciate the grind of the 162-game season, do you think it's good or bad for baseball if the 87-win Philadelphia Phillies win the World Series?
I think it's great. I thought last year was the most improbable World Series champion I've ever seen in the Atlanta Braves, where they came from, how they went about and won, and who they beat. The odds were astronomical at September 15th. When you go back to June 3rd, the odds were so astronomical against A, Philly making it, B, and then getting through the gauntlet of what this is a new playoff system. And so I could make the argument that if they win the World Series this year, it's even more improbable than what Atlanta did last year because of the added postseason series. They were 17 days in a row on the road to end the year and get to the playoffs. And they've captured this city, which is, by the way, wants to stick the fangs into whatever opposing team comes in because it's been unbelievable, the fan base. So I would say that it'd be good for it because if you're looking in the future, I don't think this is going to be the norm. But if you're looking in the future for hope for organizations who could kind of get in and make let's say they don't compete with the big boys on 162, but are built for the postseason, potentially they could do the same thing. I think it's a motivator for a lot of organizations.
John, you mentioned earlier Dusty Baker, and look, he's been, as you mentioned, a great manager. He's got like 1,000 more wins than the next manager who hasn't won a World Series. And he's taken 5 teams to the playoffs. What do you think? I mean, talk about if he can close the deal and win this series, what it'll mean for his legacy as a manager.
Well, he's already been highly respected for how he leads men and leads teams and leads extraordinary circumstances like the one he took over. I would probably bet you to say that this was going to be a one-year deal, and maybe Houston looks to kind of cap the whole situation and get a new manager. He not only kind of took care of that. He has been the face of this organization since that scandal, since those issues, and nobody, I can imagine, could handle it any better. And I think Dusty Baker, whether they win the World Series or not, is definitely going to the Hall of Fame. You could say the same thing for Dombrowski, the GM for the Phillies, and what he's been able to do with multiple organizations, getting them to this point. I think both organizations have a chance to kind of get 2 executives, an executive and a manager in the Hall of Fame because of their success. Multiple teams. This is not just one team you ride off into the sunset. This is a bunch of different scenarios that Dusty and Dombrowski have had to face, and it really kind of captures this moment.
Excellent stuff, John. Thanks for joining us. Have a great World Series. It should be excellent. Hey, coverage begins 7 o'clock on Fox. It should be excellent. Phillies, Astros.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.